The state is asking the FDA to repeal a powerful new painkiller because of concerns about abuse and overdoses.
Yeah, other drugs are already coming along, and many are in mountain communities. When used incorrectly, they can kill.
News 13's Rex Hodge joins us live from the Western News Center with this special report. Rex, how big is the problem, and what steps are being taken to keep people safe?
Well, law enforcement says in Haywood County alone, it's a huge problem. They're talking to schools, organizations, and churches to educate people. And there are recent developments at the state and federal level to keep tighter reins on these powerful painkillers.
John was a really good kid, never any problems.
It's been almost 5 years since John Chapman lost his son and namesake, John Jr., to a prescription drug overdose.
The friend went and bought 2 fentanyl patches. Gave him one of them, told him to chew it like chewing gum. Well, that's a 3-day dose of medicine that he absorbed at one time and laid down and went to sleep and just never woke up.
Western North Carolina is way ahead of the other counties in our state as far as prescription overdose deaths, death by opiates.
Waynesville Police Chief Bill Hollingshead says his own backyard, Haywood County, is a painkiller battleground.
So when you look at the total number of deaths in your county, and at one point having 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 people dying of just prescription drug overdose, that's way too many, and that's a death that could be prevented.
He says part of the problem is the myth about prescription drugs.
A lot of people feel like prescription drugs aren't near as addictive as some of the illicit street drugs, when in reality the opiates, the painkillers, are just as, if not more addictive than a lot of the illicit street drugs.
Dr. Bart Pascal is a medical oncologist in Clyde. He says the result is hundreds of deaths across the state, 670 in 2012 alone.
They estimate that of those, about 70% were related to the prescription opioids getting out of the possession of the person to whom it was prescribed.
It's getting very scary.
With highly addictive prescription pills floating around the community, pharmacists like Kim Ferguson are seeing people willing to resort to crime to get their hands on them. Her Waynesville pharmacy broken into 2 years ago, and she's seeing worse.
A pharmacist in Virginia was shot and killed during an armed robbery at his store during business hours, and the guy was wanting oxycodone.
Some pharmacists won't even carry newer, even more powerful painkillers, like Zohydro. She says existing medication works. And the state is asking the Food and Drug Administration to withdraw Zohydro due to packaging concerns.
Asking the manufacturer to put the medication in a tamper-proof pill rather than just a capsule that can be readily abused.
The Food and Drug Administration has rejected another new painkiller called Mox Duo, which mixes morphine with oxycodone. The FDA says it could have led to more drug abuse.
I just as soon see the FDA require the drug companies who make these drugs to do long-term studies to prove that they're safe and effective.
Dr. Pascal says short-term drug studies, sometimes just 16 weeks, don't give an accurate picture of addiction. He says doctors are complaining to the FDA about a growing problem they're calling opioid use disorder. At the state level, Dr. Pascal says there's promising news from the medical board, currently working on a policy requiring doctors to be more careful when prescribing painkillers, to screen patients for substance abuse disorders or psychological issues, and to monitor any diversion of drugs to other people. And there could be consequences.
If there's an injury to the patient or an overdose or a death from opioids, and they haven't followed guidelines outlined by the North Carolina Medical Board, then their license could be in jeopardy.
Being Christian, I'm mad at God. I'm just as mad as I can be. You know, why did he take my son?
All steps in the right direction to John Chapman, but he'll always miss his son, and he worries we haven't seen the worst yet. He says stiff penalties and education are the biggest weapons to fight prescription drug abuse. And he says everybody needs to pay attention.
But this gets everybody. It don't just get a few people. It gets everybody.
The State Medical Board is seeking input on the new prescription drug guidelines and will issue a formal statement coming up at the end of May. For information about help with narcotics addiction, you can go to our webpage at WLOS.com. Reporting live tonight from the Western News Center, Rex Hodge, News 13.